Welcome to our Parent-Carer Information Session webinar from Positive Partnerships. Today's topic is iPads, tablets and apps for autism. What do iPads and tablets, or any technology for that matter, have to offer? There can be much hype around technology, but how can we help deliver on its promise? During today's webinar, we're going to look at some examples from a girl called Carly and a boy Tim. We're going to go back to the matrix and how we can use that. And very importantly, we're going to look at how we can select apps. There's so much choice. So what can we be done to help make an informed decision? Does this cartoon ring a bell? A factor in adopting technology is the ease with which children appear to pick up how it works. And this even appears more so with children with autism. Technology can be a way in, but there can be drawbacks as well. Did you see the video of Luke at the Parent-Carer workshop? The boy who wrote Freaks, Geeks and Asperger's. He was spending 7 hours a day on his computer and was driving his family mad and limiting what his outcomes were becoming. Carly Fleischman is a young lady in America, and she spent, up until she was aged 11, she could not speak, but at the age of 11, she wrote on a computer the words hurt, and then she typed help. And that was the first sort of communication that the parents had any indication of. They'd spent hours and hours of therapy, and they were frustrated because they knew there was something there and they couldn't get it out. If you Google search Carly Fleischman, you get some great YouTube videos to have a look at her story. This young boy is named Tim Chan, and he's from Victoria, lives in Melbourne. This is about 16, this video, but he's 18 now, and he gave a talk at the TEDx Talks recently. And he was talking about technology. And he went on to say, I want to help people get the most out of themselves. Most of all, I want people to see the unseen, beyond the labels and out of packaging. I want them to see me. Like Carly, this boy was nonverbal. But the use of technology enabled him to share his thoughts. And certainly iPads and tablets are being used in this way as well today, to give voice to those who have not been able to share their thoughts easily. There are certainly many words thrown around about technology. We all heard of iPads, tablets, Androids, iOS, and the words go on and on and on. You may have an iPad or tablet at home. You may use Microsoft. You may have a Nokia phone. The brand of technology is not necessarily important, as increasingly most of the apps that we have in education and in the society cover both platforms. So if you see one for Apple, it may be available on Android as well. In relation to using technology with your child, some questions for you to think about. In regards to that technology, have you had support from external professionals, such as OTs, speech pathologists, early intervention specialists and others? Who in your home uses an iPad or tablet? How is the device being used? What benefits have you or anyone else seen? What about school use? Is there any collaboration on the use of that technology at school between school and home? Or is it just another expensive toy doing what other devices could do? Here we have our friends the frogs. One's on a lily pad, one's on a tablet. Is the iPad in this case any more effective than a water lily? Are they not achieving the same purpose? So it's important to identify if the technology can offer anything new and in what ways. And so it's important to consider the technology as a tool. And we always keep the student or the child at the centre. So we look at that as a tool to help the person. And so we look at the child, and we look at their environments and their tasks and what other tools are out there. And we want to foster participation and achievement by the student or child. So when thinking of your child, what area of concern do you have? What does your child need to be able to do that is difficult or impossible to do independently at this time? What special needs are there? And we have a look back at our matrix that if you went to the workshops you would have seen. And many people have used this as a great tool between home and school. And so if we look at the characteristics of autism, and we consider the child as at the centre, and we look at the key areas which require support for that child, and review strategies and how they can be implemented to best support that child. And many tools can be useful to help in this process. An iPad or a tablet with a carefully chosen app could be just one of those tools. So, for example, in this case, when we look at the rigid and repetitive behaviour, and we have a person who won't participate in any class performances, and the impact is that that child is missing out on experiences, well, then we look at the strategy, and we may decide there that an iPad could be used or a tablet could be used to help with those structures around social stories, or even perhaps with the role play by using the inbuilt camera feature. So we use the technology with the strategies to help. So we look at the goals we want to achieve. And this is a form that may be useful as well. And we're going to look at this as an example. And it's called an iPad planner, but it could also be called a tablet planner. And so the next few slides are going to be continuing this process of looking at that technology and how it can help us with our goals. In this case, we're going to look at going to an assembly. It could be anything that's in your mind. You may want to think of something that you would like to work on. In this case, it's going to be having a child go to assembly. So you consider, what do you want your child to do? And we've already mentioned this. It's going to be go to assembly with his class. And as I said before, you may have something of your own that you would want to put in that area. Then we look at how currently they are doing this. So in this case, the child may scream, drop to the floor, refuse to leave the classroom, but maybe the child is happy when in the library. And on the adult side, it may be that they show a visual timetable and they're verbally telling the child to go to the library. So that's what's currently happening for both. Then we consider what we want to replace the behaviours with. So what do we want to happen instead? So for the child, we want the child to walk to the library with his class or her class, have access to the timetable at all times, and request to look at the timetable. When the adult is concerned, the adult's going to have a timetable that is accessible all the time and refer to it regularly. Then we go and look at why would we use an iPad or tablet in this case. So we're sort of justifying why we're using this technology. And the reasons could be it's easy to transport between class and the library or assembly. It's easy to make changes to timetables. And the child is motivated to use the technology. And we also consider the other environmental supports around this technology. So we may give the device a home in the classroom or wherever. There may be request cards which are available. There could be a no symbol for when the device is not in use. Whose turn and the board, and a heavy-duty case just in case of those instances where it may be become a bit of a projectile. They're just some suggestions for environmental supports. And you might find other people be able to help you with those sort of ideas. This is where you would consider who will help you. Could be the child's teacher, parents, speech pathologist, OT, those people involved. Then we come to what apps will we trial? And this is a difficult question because there are thousands and thousands of apps there. So how do you pick the ones that are most useful? And there are so many options. And unfortunately, there's no silver bullet because what suits one may not suit another person. This is called an Apps for Autism wheel. It's a small selection of what's available out there. As I said, it's a very small selection. But you can see in the centre of the circle is other characteristics of autism. And the green is the common learning tasks. And then we have the app categories. And on the outer ring of the circle, we have some specific apps to help with those characteristics. And this is by no means exhaustive. So it's important to consider what app will you use, because you could be wasting your money and wasting your time. So you think back to the matrix and the key characteristics of autism and what you're trying to address. And then you match up the apps with that. This is one way of reviewing what sort of apps are out there. It's called an app rubric. And it looks at some key areas to consider when you're looking at apps. For example, the ease of use. Some apps are quite intuitive and easy to pick up. Others, you can get lost very quickly. How engaging are the apps? Engagement's very important. Sometimes you can buy an app and it becomes very boring very quickly. What about the age and grade level? And are there adjustable levels in that actual app? That is some of the questions to consider when you're looking at apps. So in your research, you might find some of the next few slides have some handy links. This one is Autism Speaks. And this site enables, you can look across various apps across different platforms, so not just Android, not just Apple. And you can also get links to the research. So some of these apps have been researched. Although given it's a relatively new field, research is still scarce when we come to looking what is most effective app-wise for children with autism. This is another more specific Android website, which looks at autism and special needs as well. So it's not just specifically autism. This is a West Australian website, so an Australian-based. It looks at all apps as well. You can consider. Another handy site. And this, once again, is not specifically autism, it's children with special needs. And we have an important quote here from Mark from the Integrated Technology for Persons with Autism and Developmental Disabilities. And he says an important thing here. He says the key to finding the best app is not to search in the App Store for the disorder, but by the skill you are trying to address. So go back to that matrix. What skills do we want to actually implement Another place that you can also go to help you with this is the actual website that designs and sells the app. In this case, it's TapSpeak. So you go to their website and you can get some important information about that app as well. Some further links there and information. And just before you leave today, 3 questions I would like you to consider. From what we've gone through, what have you learnt today? Secondly, what questions do you still have? And thirdly, and more importantly, what are you going to do now? Think back to the matrix, think back to the iPad and tablet planner, think back to the app selection. They're just a few guides to help you with what you're going to do now. And thank you for joining our webinar on iPads and tablets.